the fact of mortality. Considering him once more as merely a man, Yeshua ben Yosef is quoted in John saying, "I am the resurrection and the life. Those who believe in me, even though they die, will live, and everyone who lives and believes in me will never die." Quite a claim from the Palestinian blacksmith.
We are only mammals and remain only partially rational. As such, we're afraid of the dark, we're afraid of the unknown, and we're afraid to die. The thought of evading death and achieving immortality is a recurring theme throughout human history, but it is only fiction. However comforting it may be for the old or the infirm, it simply isn't true, and that is important.
Imagine you are a doctor, and a close friend has just stepped into your office to hear the results of their cancer screening. You read through the results, and to your dismay, you discover that they have a very aggressive and advanced tumour that will be fatal within months. Imagine that your friend has a family, a job, retirement plans, a happy life. The news will be life-shattering. You now have two choices. The first choice. You tell them the truth. They are going to die soon. They weep and despair and go into the arms of their loved ones and live the rest of their brief existence on their own terms. They can do the things that they had always wanted to do, the things a life of commitments had never let them do. They might realise, for the first time, the value and brevity of this life, and the air never tastes better. Your news is not comforting. They do not want it, but it is true. The second choice. You don't tell them the truth. You tell them what is comforting, what they want to hear. You tell them that they don't have cancer, that they are free to live a happy and full life. They celebrate and go back to their life, but it isn't true. They return to the world of work, stress and living, but their condition deteriorates and they feel it, only too late. They realise that you lied to them. You can only imagine their fury. You took from them the most precious time of their life, their final days of health. They did not live out their days on their terms, as they would have wanted.
So then, comfort or truth? The fact of mortality is a fact we must reconcile ourselves with, however uncomfortable we may find it. To lie and say that death will never come is inexcusable. Jesus is offering the false promise of immortality, and all those terrified of death flock to him. But there the analogy breaks down, because all those who lived out their lives in obedience and prostration to God in the hopes of a second life, all those so afraid of death that they do not freely live, they never get the chance to express their fury at those who lied to them. They die comforted, yet deceived. They have been robbed of the only brief existence that their consciousness will ever know, and in the vain hopes of another.
Humanism is the philosophy that stands in direct opposition to this cruel fable.
The humanist knows that they have one life, a short, insignificant, beautiful life, and one that is not to be wasted placating non-existent entities. In this way, Jesus is the greatest enemy of humanism. Consider carefully then the line between what is comforting to believe and what is true.
The legacy of Jesus.
Finally, we come to the teaching of Yeshua ben Yosef that has impacted most on the imagination of humanity, the threat of eternal torture after death. Nowhere in the Old Testament is it said that the dead could be punished. The word hell, translated from the Hebrew Sheol, refers only to a realm of the dead, thought to be literally under the ground. Not until the great moral teacher, gentle Jesus, meek and mild, is it said that you will be eternally tortured if you do not live as he wishes you to live.
In Matthew, Yeshua says that angels will, quote, gather out of his kingdom all things that offend, and them which do iniquity, and shall cast them into a furnace of fire. There shall be wailing and gnashing of teeth. And later, he is quoted as saying, "If thy hand or thy foot offend thee, cut them off and cast them from thee. It is better for thee to enter into life halt or maimed, rather than having 2 hands or 2 feet to be cast into everlasting fire." This is the man that the good book is about.
But we unbelievers may easily shrug off the threat of hell. For us, it is the equivalent of some New Age hippie threatening to punch us in the aura. We aren't afraid of it because we don't believe it exists. But for hundreds of years, hell was a very real place in the minds of believers, who thought that their eternal souls were at real risk of eternal torture unless they obediently adhered to the teachings of the church.
This fear is not extinct. Even today, with modern medicine and scientific research, whilst we are learning about extrasolar planets and quantum physics, there are still those terrified of punishment beyond the grave, thanks to the Messiah.
So then, on top of the threat of eternal torture, Yeshua ben Yosef teaches non-resistance of evil. He forgives wrongdoers without the consent of the victim. He lies to those most afraid of death, and he devalues love. And if he were truly God, he is guilty of the most shameful underachieving. He murdered himself to atone for his own idiocy. He postures a great sacrifice whilst being fully aware of his own immortality. And on top of this, and worst of all, he then considers himself worthy of your love.
It is often joked that if Jesus were to come back today, we'd probably lock him up. The irony is that if we did, we'd be justified.